Hundreds of thousands were screaming his name. Stadiums were shaking with his every move. But the moment he stepped backstage, he was met with the most haunting silence in the world. The most famous face on the planet, yet why was he also the loneliest human being to ever live? Behind the sparkling glove, the gravity-defying moves, and the billion-dollar smile, there was a void no one could touch. The truth is heartbreaking. Michael Jackson never really grew up because the world never allowed him to be a child. It all started in that tiny, cramped house in Gary, Indiana. While other kids were outside playing hide-and-seek or skinning their knees, Michael was trapped in a studio, sweating until he reached a perfection that shouldn't be asked of a child. His father, Joe Jackson, didn't offer hugs. He stood there with a belt in his hand. One wrong note, one missed step, and the strike was immediate. Years later, Michael would confess in an interview that even as a grown man, he would physically shake and feel sick just at the sight of his father. When the first person you are supposed to trust becomes the source of your lifetime of fear, the foundation of your soul is broken. This is why Michael spent his entire adult life chasing a childhood he never had. He built Neverland, a massive kingdom with Ferris wheels, cinemas, and a zoo. But here's the tragedy. While dozens of children laughed and played in his backyard, Michael was often seen wandering those grounds alone at night. He owned the playground, but he had no one to play with. As he rose to the absolute peak of global fame, the crowds grew larger, but his real circle grew smaller. Michael Jackson wasn't just a person anymore. He was a corporate entity, a billion-dollar machine. He was surrounded by yes-men, lawyers, and managers who saw him as a bank account rather than a human being. Everyone was quick to say, "Yes, Michael," but almost no one ever asked, "How are you, Michael?" He lost his trust so many times that he began to believe everyone had a hidden agenda. He once said that even when he was in a room full of people, he felt like he was in the middle of a desert. This paralyzing paranoia forced him to retreat into a shell. He began to prefer the company of animals and children because, as he put it, their hearts weren't yet corrupted by greed or betrayal. To him, the adult world had become a synonym for pain. Even his physical transformation was a loud cry for help and a desperate escape. The countless surgeries and the changing features weren't just about vanity. Michael was trying to erase the face he saw in the mirror because it reminded him of the man who haunted his childhood. But the more he changed his reflection, the more he became a stranger to himself. The masks, the heavy makeup, the umbrellas, and the bandages he wore in public weren't just style icons, they were his armor. They were a physical fortress built by a man who was terrified of being touched, yet was starving for a simple, genuine human connection. He was the most watched man in history, yet he spent every day hiding in plain sight. The final crushing blow came from the very place he sought refuge, the world of innocence. The allegations that followed him in the 90s and early 2000s didn't just damage his career, they extinguished the last bit of light in his soul. Whether the world judged him or defended him, the damage was done. He retreated into a dark, chemically induced isolation. By the time he was preparing for his final This Is It concerts, he was a shadow of his former self. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat, and he could only find peace through the heavy haze of medical anesthesia. On June 25, 2009, when he took his final breath in a silent room, he wasn't leaving a party. He was finally completing a long, solitary journey that had started decades ago in a studio in Indiana. Michael Jackson taught us to dance, to sing, and to dream of a better world. But the world never gave him the one thing he desperately needed, a safe place to just be Michael. Perhaps the king of pop was imprisoned by his own crown from the very day he put it on. He gave his life to the stage, and in return, the stage took everything from him. So the next time you hear his voice, remember the man behind the music, the man who had the whole world at his feet, but no one by his side. What do you think was the turning point for Michael? Was he a victim of his own fame, or did the world simply fail him? Let's talk about it in the comments.